Lucky. Good to go. Just like that. Great. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to be starting here in just a moment. As we start, Mac's going to be leading the family in. And before we do that, if you have a phone in a pocket or purse, if you would be kind enough to either silence that or turn that off so that we can proceed uninterrupted. And in a few moments, the military will be coming to start our service off and honor his time serving our country. For that time, as taps are played, if you are current or former military, and we would encourage you to salute. For the rest of us, if we could stand and put our hand over our heart, and then we'll be seated as they fold the flag. Okay? Thank you for being here.
find your seats, then I will adjust the music for this one. Okay.
Maybe see. Not a powerful way to start our time your day. I have an incredible respect for our military, and I noticed several of you saluting, and I don't think we do a good enough job in our country of saying thank you to those who have served and their families. So on behalf of the rest of us and on behalf of Ed, thank you for that moment and for the military who is here to help us today. My name is Brian. I am what they call a funeral celebrant. I have a normal day job like most of you. I'm a leadership consultant by day, but I do this because several years ago I lost my mom, and what we're doing here today by coming together and seeing some friends and family and exchanging a hug or a story, it's just such a big part of the healing process. So on behalf of the family, thank you all for taking the time to be here today. You know, over the last several years, we've kind of moved away from calling what we're doing here a funeral, and we're hearing more and more the phrase life celebration. And I like that shift because as hard as a day like today is, there's a lot to celebrate in his life. And I had the privilege of talking for quite a while to Pam and Molly. And my privilege is I just get to sit back and hear the story of someone that I had never had the privilege to meet. And after reading the obituary, and if you have not taken the time to do that, I encourage you. I read it the first time and then the second and third time and thought, who was this man? And so to be able to talk to them and I understand that there's been a struggle with memory issues for quite a while. And if you've ever been in the caretaking role of that, I'm not sure on this side of heaven, there's much harder, to be honest, because in so many ways you're saying goodbye twice. And but we're here today to be able to honor a life that started in 1936. I mean, that's hard for me to wrap my head around. I don't think there'll ever be another 100-year span where people will experience so much macro change just in the way that our country operates, the way that we behave as people, all of it. And he's right on the edge of the generation that's referred to as the greatest generation. And I don't think that's 1 ounce of an exaggeration. You know, he would have been born in the aftermath of the Great Depression, would have experienced all the beginning, during, and after of World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, the moon landing. He served our country from 1966 to 68, and couldn't help but notice in his obituary his time serving as the ophthalmologist for the president and first lady at the time. Yet he would have been there for Vietnam and Korea and the rise of personal computers. In the beginning, one computer would have taken up most of this room that we're sitting in, and now we carry them around in our pockets and purses and everything. 9/11, COVID, so many things that he would have seen. A very wise person once said, it's okay to miss him. It's okay to say his name every day if you need to. It's okay to cry. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to breathe deeply. It's okay to smile when you think of him. It's going to be okay to have days when you can function, and it's going to be okay to have days when you just can't. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be thankful. It's okay to remember. It's okay to hope. And the biggest thing is it's okay after a loss to be honest about exactly how you're feeling. One of the things that I've learned about grief over the years is it's kind of messy because it doesn't affect any two people the same because everybody's relationships are different. And the best thing that you can do after a loss is just give each other the space to feel however it is you need to feel. Because the only right way to feel today is however you're feeling today. And so the best thing that people can do in a family is just give each other that kind of space. I'm a big reader, and one of my favorite authors is a man named Frederick Bachman, and I was reading one of his books the other night, and this quote popped off the page, so I got up and I typed it out because I thought it was so powerful. He said, over time, I've realized that deep down, almost everyone asks themselves the same sort of questions about life, especially as we get older. We start to ask ourselves, am I a good person? Have I made anyone proud? Was I useful to society? Was I good at my job? Am I considered generous and considerate? Does anyone want me to be their friend? Have I been a good parent? Am I a good person? And ultimately, we ask ourselves the question, you know what, did my life even matter? And you guys are showing today in a strong number that his life mattered, didn't it? I know some referred to him as Dr. Thomas and others Ed and Eddie and Doc. And I asked, and I'm going to refer to him for the rest of my time today as Ed. And it's interesting. It would be fascinating to be able to look down on this chapel right now and to see all the different generations and different decades of friendships and relationships that are represented in here. All the different conversations and moments and memories that you all have. And I'm a big believer in something that I call holy collisions. And what I mean by that is if you think over the course of your life, there are certain times that we are lucky enough to run into the exact right person at the exact right time of our lives for the exact right reason that we're supposed to run into that person. You might be sitting next to one of your holy collisions right now. You think back to that first moment you met. Where were you? And who talked to who first? And what was it you saw in each other that has led to the significant relationship that it has turned into? Because if you think about it, whenever I have the privilege to do a service like this, I consider this group sitting in this chapel on this Saturday, we're our own version of a holy collision. Try to explain why this group of human beings would ever be at the same place at the same time. And let's be honest, when we parked our cars a little bit ago, I would dare say that many of us have things we're worrying about, decisions we're trying to make. There might be something going on in your life this afternoon that nobody else in this room is even aware of. And all that stuff's going to be waiting for us when we go back and get in our cars. So my hope and my prayer is very simple. I hope that by the time we go back to our busy lives, we're going to hear something from his story to put place into our lives. And to me, that is the best way to celebrate someone's life, when their story makes the difference in our story. So before I go any further, if you're comfortable joining me, I'd like to ask if you would to join me in a word of prayer, okay? God, I thank you for this holy collision of friends and family that have gathered here today. I thank you for Ed and his life and the way that he lived it. Thank you for the care that's been given to him these last many years. And God, I don't understand how you do it, but I have a personal belief that you can look down on a room like this and you know what's going on in the lives of every person in every chair in this room. So I pray that in the few moments we have today, that we might hear something or remember something or realize something or even feel something that we could take out of this room, and by doing that, make sure that we keep his spirit alive. In your name we pray these things. Amen. Well, I know that one of those perfect holy collisions was Pam. They 49 years together. They met at the office. She said their personalities complemented each other. After I heard how busy he was, how with the drive that he had, I finally asked Pam, I said, what was it like being his co-pilot all those years? And her answer was perfect. She said, I'm exhausted, to be quite honest. But their story, I just loved hearing their story because they were supposed to meet. And for the next few moments, I'm going to get out of the way because some of the other people that knew him very well and had those special moments with him are going to come up and share. Tracy, first of all, is going to come up and share. And then John is going to come up and share. And then Trey. And then I'm going to close with a piece that Amy has written. So Tracy, come on.
Thank you. I have to say that, first of all, thank you, Pam, for entrusting in me to try to summarize this man's work. That's kind of the focus today. She asked me to focus on is his work and working with him at the office. I worked for Dr. Thomas for 22 years, and it was quite a pleasure. But it was a daunting task to kind of summarize. He had so many magnificent traits and accomplishments. It's really hard in about the 10 minutes I'm going to speak here to try to summarize all that for you. I'll do my best. The good thing is I had collected a lot of things over the years. So I kind of pulled open some tubs that I've had saved, and good for me that he was a great historian. So he would personally write a lot of things, and I had a lot of archives to look at. So the first two things I want to share with you, we'll just kind of start with the history that he had of working with his father. And this is from our Better Business Bureau award that we were the Eclipse Integrity winner. And he partook in creating this summary of how everything began. In 1936, Edward R. Thomas Sr. was the first board-certified ophthalmologist in the Dayton area. He chose an office location at 60 Wyoming Street, just across the street from Miami Valley Hospital. These were tough times, as World War II began in 1939. Dr. Thomas Sr. felt the need to support his country and wanted to join the military in 1942. He longed to leave the United States and join his colleagues overseas. However, the general at Wright Airfield, later known as Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, asked that Dr. Thomas Sr. stay and practice at his 60 Wyoming Street location and serve the air base as the only local ophthalmologist available to Wright Airfield. He examined over 100 patients a day. Dr. Thomas Sr. served in the military from 42 to 46 and was awarded a civilian award in 1946 for service to country in time of war. This is a true story that if you worked in the office or were part of his family or you were his friends, you probably have heard this story before because it's something he was very proud of and he repeated many times. And the practice would continue and would sustain 80 years after that. This began a long history of service, dedication, accountability with high ethics and standards and true integrity that was adopted by Dr. Thomas Jr. The other item that I came across, didn't even realize that I had, was, I gave it to Pam and Molly last night, but it was, I've got a photocopy of it here. It was a handwritten note from Dr. Thomas. And it was entitled, Life of Edward R. Thomas Jr. This is the good part. Composed December 29, 2007, 3 a.m. So he was obviously up that night thinking about his life and his work. So I just took a small excerpt from it. It's several pages long. But I don't think anyone can tell his story better than he can. So as it goes, quoted, I attended Northwestern University from 54 to 58 and got a BS degree in biology, geography, and missed chemistry by 4 hours. I attended medical school at the University of Cincinnati 1958 to 1962. I interned at Passavant Memorial Hospital from 62 to 63. I then received an ophthalmology fellowship at Northwestern University Medical School from 63 to 66 under Dr. Derek Vale. I developed a cryo cataract removal instrument in 64 to 66 while in training, and Northwestern paid for 6 patents on this instrument and technique. Ohio Medical Products, and he has in parentheses Oasis, bought the patents in 65 to 66 and made commercial instruments in 1966 in Madison, Wisconsin. I was obligated under the Barney Plan to spend 2 years serving in the military at completion of residency from 66 to 68. This obligation was met at Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, D.C. as ophthalmology associate in Department of Ophthalmology. My most important patients were President Dwight Eisenhower and Mamie. They invited my family and I to go to their Gettysburg Farm, and one of my biggest regrets in life was not fulfilling this invitation. Walter Reed had many memorable experiences, including flying to Saigon, Vietnam, but our plane could not land and was actually the first plane to come under attack at Saigon Airport. And I was forced to land in Bangkok, Thailand. And here I spent 1 month flying around the world on the U.S. Embassy flights. I took up ophthalmology practice with my father from 68 to his death in 72 at 60 Wyoming Street, until the hospital tore down the building July 10th, 2007, and we moved to 105 Sugar Camp Circle, which is the former NCR building. End quote of that section of that. Both Dr. Thomas Sr. and Dr. Thomas Jr. implemented a theory of walk-in appointments. They would begin the morning at the hospital at 7 a.m. providing surgery 5 days a week. They would then open the office doors 6 days a week around 8 a.m. and welcome the crowds that had begun to gather wanting superior medical services. They felt that any patient that needed care that day should be able to arrive at the office and be examined that day. Regardless of how many arrived, they did not stop until all patients were seen. It was not uncommon that he would see patients well into 2 or 3 in the afternoon before breaking for lunch. This style of walk-in appointments continued until 1993, when the office began scheduled appointments. Under Dr. Thomas, Thomas Eye Institute, later known as Ohio Eye Care Specialists or Institute, grew and included satellites in Xenia, Troy, Springboro, and Lebanon. Dr. Thomas, like his father, was a very hard worker. He also had compassion for his patients, as well as desire to offer his patients the latest technology to preserve their vision. Endless patients would make him cards, drawings, bread, cookies, and small gifts of appreciation. If I could quote Molly's Facebook post earlier this week, He was important to so many others. He devoted his life to helping his patients, preserving and restoring what he believed to be the most important of the five senses, sight. He poured his heart into both his work and his loved ones, giving so much of himself to everyone around him. Dr. Thomas performed the first corneal transplant in Dayton and also started the Lions Eye Bank, which procured and supplied tissues and corneas for donations. He performed over 25,000 cataract surgeries. Over the years, instead of doing surgery each morning, he transitioned to doing surgery all day Wednesday and half day Thursdays, completing up to 35 surgeries per week. Even with doing large volumes of surgeries, he never lost the personal touch with patients. After each surgery, he would present each patient with a rose, and then we would proceed to take a Polaroid picture of him with each patient that he would present to them the following day. I personally have one of these photos myself. It has my dad in it with his eye patch on, Dr. Thomas, and his rose. If you were really lucky, some patients got the pleasure of him serenading them in the OR. Patients loved him. He loved his patients and his staff. He would show genuine care and compassion for those he treated, as well as those that worked alongside of him. If you worked for him, he treated you as family. I personally had the privilege of working for him for 22 years. It was very common for employees to work for him for over 40 years, including Karen, Donna, Chuck is here today, and Karen, and Annette. He so enjoyed having actual family members working alongside of him, including his wife Pam as his scrub nurse, his sister-in-law Beth, his cousins Karen and Susan, and of course his pride and joy having his daughters Debbie and Molly working alongside of him for many years. He worked hard, but Dr. Thomas ensured we all have fun. Just this past week, I was recalling one day in surgery when he decided he wanted to dress up as the Easter Bunny. So we're in the middle of doing a lot of surgeries. He decides, I'm going to dress up as the Easter Bunny and surprise everybody. He put on this white zip-up suit over his scrubs. He turned a bedpan over. He wrapped it up and created a hat. He blew up a bunch of gloves and handed me a pack of markers and said, now sit here and color these. He found a basket. I put all the gloves in there, created an Easter basket for him. And then he took out two white pieces of scrap paper and stuck them up underneath his lip to create two giant teeth. And then he entered the nursing area to surprise everyone that he had transformed himself into the Easter Bunny. I know this is not easy to see, and I do have it with me. I found this picture also in my archive. So I thought of the story, and then the picture fell out, and something just told me he'd kind of get a kick out of me sharing that story. Life at the office was lively and full of adventure. Before my time, there were the mint julep parties after patients on Derby days. We had fabulous Christmas parties where dessert would always be bananas Foster that was made by Dr. Thomas. It was always one of my favorite parts of a Christmas party. We enjoyed playing games at the Christmas party, including I've Got a Secret, where we learned a little too much about one another. Or one of my favorite was True and False about Dr. Thomas. We did this numerous times because he was such a fascinating person that if you listed things out, you'd be like, oh, that has to be false. That has to be false. A lot of it was true, as we're learning, right? He was featured, one of these, here's a couple from the True and False. At one time, he was featured in the National Enquirer. This is actually true. Now, he really wasn't the feature of the National Enquirer article, but he was in the National Enquirer because he went to school with Warren Beatty. And Warren Beatty was featured, and it showed a class picture, and there Dr. Thomas sat just a few seats down from Warren Beatty. That he had missed his plane once overseas because he was having a new suit tailored. He was very upset about this, upset that he missed his plane and was trying to rush them along with his suit. But when he arrived at the arrival airport, there had been a plane that had crashed, and it actually was his original flight. Along with the true fact that Dwight and Mamie Eisenhower were his patients. Dr. Thomas enjoyed telling stories also of the Playboy bunnies that he had treated. There was a boating accident in Chicago while he was in fellowship at Northwestern, and all the bunnies had glass and debris and all sorts of things in their eyes, so they had to come in to be treated, and he would laugh and giggle about how they were walking around the hospital with their little bunny tails on while he tried to patch them all up. For his July birthday, he would treat the office staff to an outing, usually involving renting a bus for the full team and taking us to the zoo, casino, or renting a boat on the Ohio River for a private lunch river cruise. When the practice closed in 2016, he treated the staff to one last river cruise. I think we all treasure the photos of last time our full group was together. When Pam announced to the Ohio Eye Care staff of his passing, her words read, "Thank you for all your years of dedication to him, his vision, and Ohio Eye Care. He loved each and every one of you. Ohio Eye Care would not have succeeded, thrived, and helped the numerous amount of patients without the entire team." So thank you, Pam, for recognizing the team. And Pam, I want to thank you for taking such good care of Doc. Always, but especially these past few years. He was so well taken care of by you. It was all the small details and you ensuring he was always warm and comfy. It's always cold and you made sure he was warm. It has always been easy to see the love you had for him. Somehow he still made us giggle with his antics, even at the Memory Care Center. Personally, I want to thank him publicly for mentoring me, believing in me, trusting me, and plain and simple, being a true friend to me. I do realize that I, along with many others, experienced a work environment we will likely never find again. And we had a boss that led by example, working hard, treating us fair and kind, and somehow you just wanted to please him and do your best. As he would famously say to all of us, chop chop. Which meant, come on team, let's get back to work. Thank you.
I just had a knee replacement, so I'm a little slow. Let me get my eyeballs on. You know, figure after being around Doc for over 50 years, I'm starting to need some stuff done in my eyes. He's over here sleeping on the job. When Pam asked me to talk here, you know, I immediately thought about some anecdotes, things that happened at the farm. Too many to go over. I mean, we'd be here for days, all the stuff that happened at the farm. Instead, I'd like to thank some people. Quit crying. You're number one. Thank you for sharing it with me. Okay. So, yeah. Just give me a second. And to his children, thank you for sharing him with me. I know there are times he should have been with you, but the farm came first. That's just Doc. Working for Doc gave me opportunities that I otherwise would not have had. Living on a ranch in Colorado, taking care of an exotic breed of cattle from Australia, farming 600 acres in 3 different counties. And I'm working full-time at DP&O the whole time, so I was a little busy. I learned to grow crops. I built a pheasant house because he wanted to raise pheasants. We built a greenhouse because he wanted to turn the farm into gourmet gardens, a big truck garden. But it's all things that I love to do. It's just in my blood like his. But more important was he wanted to chase his dreams of that farm. And he just would not reward himself for all his efforts. You know, he spent the first third of his life learning to be a doctor. So that, you know, he finally got to the point where he could do this if he had the money to do it. And we did it, and we did it a lot. He said, you have to learn to reward yourself. Well, he was a quick study. He learned real fast. But he wasn't selfish. He took a lot of people along with him on that ride. We had a lot of fun. So when you get home tonight, I'd like you to take a second and think about your interaction with Doc. You know, and just see if maybe you think he might have made you a little bit better person just being around him. Okay, so God bless Doc, and may he rest in peace. Thank you.
John, thank you. And I suppose celebrating Papa, I don't know who gave him the name Tiger, Doc, Dr. Thomas, Edward. There is a lot to celebrate. I think first, though, about the obituary and the fact that it declares who he is survived by in death. And the key was surviving Papa in life. And I think about all of the dreams he chased, all of the projects he started. I don't know that I've ever been to a service as was yesterday, the visitation, with so many uniforms, the surgical uniform, the director of the petting zoo uniform, the military uniform, the chef's white uniform, which got extensive action from what was going to be the greatest chocolatier you have ever married, to all of the farm activity. When I married in 19 years ago, I did not get here on time for all of the adventure and all of the expeditions. The farm is still active, and I have a story about that. But first, Papa at our wedding had stories, and since Warren Beatty was raised, and we are Sigma Chi brothers, we heard an awful lot of stories. I kind of wondering how he was going to pass that microphone. But one of the stories he shared that will always bring a smile to my face is a story that Jennifer had shared with her mother and father. And she was moving some of my furniture into the house after a slight remodel, turned with a portrait or a picture, and scratched the wall. And she felt terrible. I don't know where it came from except love. I just kind of grabbed her up and I said, you can scratch my walls. You can wreck my truck, which she didn't, but it did get wrecked. Just don't break my heart. And Papa repeated that at the wedding. And that's when we knew he was smitten. And my first trip to Michigan was just a delightful trip, with the exception of the fact that as I was helping out or chasing the kids, I stepped on a pool skimmer cover and it cracked. My theory was it was brittle. It was a very old pool, but nonetheless it cracked. And then I was pulling the boat in and I forgot to drop the antenna. And now I've broken the antenna. I've cracked the pool skimmer cover, and I know he knows his stuff. I'm a little hesitant, and I walk up and I said, Papa, I'm so sorry about the skimmer cover and the antenna. He might have said, and the antenna, but he looked right at me and he stole my line. He said, you can break my skimmer cover and you can break my antenna. Just don't mess up this relationship we have started. So that same trip, Robbie was about to back up a trailer to load up and haul some stuff back. And my wife, Jennifer, had just come out of the house with a fresh cup of coffee. And all of a sudden the yelling starts. Papa is telling Robbie exactly what he's doing wrong from 30 feet away and exactly how to straighten that trailer and truck out and not hit the tree. And he's yelling back at Papa. And my wife just looks up like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. And she trots back into the store, and I look over at my father-in-law, and he's got this grin and twinkle in his eyes that he got her lit up. There was a part of him that always poked and prodded until he could engage you in some way, shape, or form. All those adventures, Pam, the co-pilot is a great example. I mean, every one of those adventures, you were shooting for the moon with him, and he was living as if he was dying. And with the loss of his father at an early age, he wasn't going to miss an opportunity to chase a dream. And that is sort of the blessing of all of us who survived and knew him well enough to know that rough exterior was just loaded with love waiting to come out. And for that, you've got a flag and a gold star, because under the definition of in sickness and in health till death do us part. I think the first set of vows were probably for fun and adventure, but you knew you were in for that. So, Papa, rest in peace. Nana, God bless you. Thank you for letting me become a part of the family that on the tail end caught the experience of a lifetime with an extraordinary man.
What a perfect set of tributes. Thank you all for exactly what you said and exactly how you said it. I have a reading from Amy. She put this together. She says, my name is Amy Rapp. Edward Thomas is my uncle. My mom, Jane, is his sister. He's always been Uncle Tom to my family. My earliest memory of Uncle Tom is him running around our family gatherings, taking photos. He documented Christmas Eve parties at his parents' house through his photographs. I remember he had a huge floodlight that he would shine on us while taking photos. So as a result, many of the photos had us squinting our eyes and putting our hands in front of our faces to block the massive light. Regardless, he had a love for photography, and I believe he planted that love for photography in me. As I grew older, I took many photography classes. He would give me the gift of new lenses to attach to my Olympus and Nikon SLR cameras. Thank you, Uncle Tom, for the love of photography. Another early memory is walking into his and my grandpa's office to get my weekly allergy shot from Rosie or Pam. I loved watching the fish in their huge fish tank in the waiting room. After my shot, I would visit Uncle Tom or Da, which I would call Grandpa, in their offices and read the eye chart and brag that I had the best vision because my uncle and grandpa were the best eye doctors in the whole wide world. So thank you, Uncle Tom, for taking such good care of all of your patients. In the summer of '76, while staying at Saddleback Ranch during Uncle Tom and Pam's wedding, we visited the small town of Durango. I thought it was a creepy cowboy town. I preferred shopping at the Dayton Mall over those small Western shops on Main Avenue in downtown Durango. Although, as years went by, while visiting my brother, who lived in Durango, I noticed Durango was more of a hippie and ski town rather than a cowboy town, and I like that. Therefore, I moved to Durango in August of 1988. I finished college, raised a beautiful family, and have been living on a mountain at 8,400 feet elevation. So thank you, Uncle Tom, for introducing me to this magical place that I've called home for the last 37 years. I also give him thanks for purchasing a house on Burt Lake, so he would be near his sister and I in the summers, wink, wink. Thank you for allowing, always being the most generous tipping customer of mine when I was your waitress at Douglas Lake Bar and Dam Site Inn, even though Pam was the one signing the credit cards. Thank you for all the pairs of Revo sunglasses a girl could want, because my image was very important in the 80s. Although at the time I didn't know he was providing me with protection to my eyes through Revo's state-of-the-art protective coating on the lenses. Thank you always for taking care of my eyes, even when I didn't know you were doing it. He was very much like his sister, always being blunt with his words. It showed me that those two has a lot of confidence within themselves to be very straightforward. They must have gotten it from their dad. When I am blunt, I call it the Jane in me. When I want to sugarcoat words, I think of how Nanny would say it. I learned from him how to have confidence within myself, no matter how I express my opinion. So thank you for that. There's something I have done my entire life, that is sending Uncle Tom a birthday card. I was thinking about how sad it will be in the future, not sending him a card. So I've decided that I'm going to keep the tradition going and simply address the envelope, Dear E.R. Thomas, Heaven. I think it would be wonderful if everyone shared something about Uncle Tom to his family members that you are grateful for in him, being in your life. Having both my parents deceased to this day, I simply love hearing stories about how they touch people's lives. Rest in peace, Uncle Tom. I will hold my love for you inside of me forever and ever. Just beautifully written. You know, that's so much like what I heard when we were talking, they told me about his drive. He was just an incredibly driven person. They said he was complicated and challenging, but like Trey said, under that exterior, there was a lot of love for the people that were within his circle. And I think that says everything there is to say. I got to hear about all of his different hobbies. And as I was listening to the long list, I'm like, none of these have anything in common. They're all over the place. And they said he was all in, no matter what the hobby was. He was all into the next one and do whatever he could to go all into that. And read about his outstanding career. And then, I've heard about these last few years, the struggle. I didn't grow up in a church, but I was part of a youth group. And we visited a nursing home every Wednesday night, and we all had an adopted grandparent that we visited. And my adopted grandma, her name was Charlotte. And back then, they didn't really call it dementia or Alzheimer's, but it was the same thing, memory issues. And I loved visiting Charlotte because I never knew what story she was going to tell on a given night. There had been a time she had been the first lady, she claimed. She had been in the royal family. She had dated Elvis, she said. Every Wednesday night when I was there at 6:30, there was a TV up on the ceiling, and the show MASH was always on every Wednesday night. Every time one of the characters played by McLean Stevenson came on the screen, she would point and tell me that was her nephew. I mean, just story after story after story. So I loved visiting her. She always knew who I was. Great visits. I had known her for about 2 years, and her health was failing towards the end. And I remember walking in one of those last nights, and I kid you not, McLean Stevenson was sitting in a room next to her bed because he really was her nephew. At that point, I was like, well, what was Elvis like? I don't know what's real. And I tell that story because I've heard about the care that's been given these last few years. I'm not a doctor. I don't understand how it works. But I believe that there are moments when the clouds separate and all those visits, conversations, you're holding his hand, I believe they get through. But I also believe that there's another place where there is no memory issues, there's no COVID, and there's no terrorists, and there's none of the stuff that we have to deal with. And my prayer is that he is getting to enjoy that right now with the people that he helped. My mind was boggled by how many thousands of people he helped with the gift of sight. I would like to close my time with you with a reading, because we still have the one thing that unfortunately he doesn't have. We have time. And so this reading addresses that. It's going to ask all of us questions about how we want to live out the rest of our lives. It's a spoken word by a group called Fearless Soul, and this is what it says. It says, what if I die today? Would I be proud of the life that I've lived? If I died tomorrow, was I happy? Would I be proud of the person that I've become? Has there been love in my life? Have I given enough love? Have I shown those I love the real me? Could I have done things better or differently? Will anyone miss me? Will anyone be better off simply because I was there? Because the truth is, not one of us in this chapel right now knows for sure we're going to wake up tomorrow. We did not walk into this room with that guarantee. So if you don't like who you've been up to this moment, make a change and make it today in his honor. If you have a broken relationship with somebody you really care about, what if you tried to mend it today? If you can give more love, give it now. If you can play more, work less. What if you decided to commit to do that now? If you can do anything to improve the quality of your life, don't wait for tomorrow. You need to make a phone call, make it this afternoon. You need to say you're sorry to somebody, say you're sorry. Hug somebody that needs a hug. Everything that needs to be said. What if we decided to stop worrying so much about how the other person may or may not react, that we get up with the same energy that Trey just talked about that he had? And we just decided, you know what? I'm going to live life today. I'm going to be the very best version of myself. I'm going to be present. I'm going to get excited about my life. So love your life while you're still living it, because all of our life starts right now. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your Holy Collision. Thank you for those of you who spoke so perfectly today. I'm going to close with a word of prayer, and then Max is going to come up and give us our dismissal instructions. Okay, let's pray. God, I thank you for everything that's happened in the last few moments, for the emotion that's in this room, for the obvious love that's in this room. And I pray that as we leave here in a little while, that we've been able to take a closer look at our own lives. So thank you for who you created in Ed, exactly the way that he was. In your name we pray. Amen.
So for the remainder of the service, we will not be traveling far. If you are a pallbearer, I'm going to ask that you fall behind the casket. It's a little narrow in the aisles. I think that's going to be a little bit more helpful this time. That being said, thank you all for attending. We really do appreciate it. There is one last thing I will say. There will be a 3-rifle volley. It will be pretty loud, so if you need to cover your ears, please do so. You're more than welcome to follow us as we take John to his final resting place. Thank you. Folks, if you would like to continue with us and follow behind us, you may do so at this time. Thank you. Oh, I should have done that. You
ENTR, mistake. You did something wonderful with your. That'd be my thought.
I will be terminating the live stream at this point in time. If there's anything we can do to help you, my name is Max. Please feel free to call our office. Thank you very much.